Good morning, dear friends. Welcome to the SAGE Group. I am Dr. Sukhman Singh, Associate Professor at SIRTS Pharmacy, and we are discussing the topic chromatography, which is a subject and a topic in the subject methods of analysis in the 7th semester of Bachelor's of Pharmacy program. In my previous class, we have already discussed quite a few topics in the heading of chromatography as such, and we have talked about the various type of chromatographies like paper chromatography, thin layer chromatography, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, ascending, descending, etc. And in my previous class, we were studying the basics of column chromatography, and we also discussed the practical aspects related to chromatography, wherein we discussed how column chromatography is carried out and what are the essential steps which are required while undertaking column chromatography. And we also studied a comparative chart of various types of chromatography, column chromatography, on the basis of technique that is carried out on the basis of physical parameters and other things. Now, in today's class, we are going to talk about those different types of column chromatography with a few advanced techniques, but we'll not be able to go up to HPLC today, which is going to be my topic tomorrow. But today we are going to complete up to ion exchange chromatography, or that is going to be my target today. So let us all start with the types and advances in column chromatography. So when we talk of column chromatography, the most common type of column chromatography that we undertake is adsorption column chromatography. Now, adsorption chromatography in itself, the name itself tells that the principle that is involved in this type of chromatography is going to be adsorption. And we have to understand quite a few topics and quite a few things are to be kept in mind while undertaking this column chromatography. I've already discussed how this process is carried out, but a few things that I would like to point out here in this particular slide is, first of all, let us talk about the adsorbents. Now, the most common types of adsorbents that are used in adsorption column chromatography are alumina and silica gel, in which the interactions with solute molecules is due to the hydroxyl groups that are present on the surface of alumina and silica gel. So now the thing is that the most common method, or when the method was evolved initially, at that time this column chromatography was initiated with the help of alumina and silica gel, and adsorption was of course because of the hydroxyl moieties that is present on the surface. So therefore, as a result, more polar groups or more polar molecules are absorbed more strongly, and thus they will elute more slowly. So the molecules which are having high affinity for hydroxyl groups, or directly related to the polar molecules, they will be absorbed more strongly, and the solute that we are going to, or the elutant that we are going to add, it is going to be non-polar, of course. So it is going to be of the similar nature, and therefore because of the polar groups are absorbed more strongly, thus they will be eluting quite slowly. And the strength of adsorption of polar groups or the solutes on polar support is in the following order. So all the way from alkenes to up to acids, we are seeing that how the difference is there on the basis of polarity. And of course, we have to choose a solvent in the similar fashion if we want to obtain a suitable kind of separation. So therefore, the order is olefins, then ethers, then esters, then lactones, then aldehydes, then amines, then phenols, and then finally acids. So this is the final final arrangement, how the strength this has been arranged according to the strength of adsorption of polar groups. Now, because of this nature that we have just seen, that first of all olefins, then greater than olefins is ethers, then greater than ethers is esters, then greater than esters is lactone. So this is the arrangement of polarity, and as a result, we are seeing here that the separation occurs in the similar fashion also. So if suppose X solute is having more polarity than the holding adsorbent, then of course that is going to take it away fast, and that is going to separate it very easily as compared to the other type of solvent. But this phase is not, this type of chromatography is the normal phase chromatography. And with the advances, what we have come to understand is that the pharmaceutical compounds are actually containing more of these compounds which have been indicated here. Pharmaceutical compounds will be either esters or lactones or aldehydes or amines or phenols or acids. So this shows that when these compounds are used along with this normal alumina and silica, then separation of organic compounds on the basis of alumina and silica is not quite possible. Why? Because they have got very less affinity with the alumina or silica, and therefore their separation is not quite possible with help of this. And therefore we would require reverse phase chromatography, which gives rise to the reverse phase chromatography or the RP chromatography, which we are going to discuss in my coming classes. So what are the applications of alumina and silica is that alumina is easily able to separate natural products like sterols, dyestuffs, vitamins, esters, alkaloids, and inorganic compounds. And it is not used for compounds which contain phenolic or carboxylic compounds. Okay, so we see here that compounds that contain phenolic groups or carboxylic groups are not easily separable if we are using alumina as such. Similarly, silica gels can separate sterols and amino acids. Similarly, carbons can separate. Now, see here. Here's the difference. So, if you use carbon as a filling material, then of course it is able to separate peptides, carbohydrates, and amino acids. And similarly, calcium carbonates is used for separation of carotenoids and xanthophylls, etc. in natural products. Now, if we talk about partition column chromatography, as discussed in my introductory class, I told that partition chromatography is something where the dividing or the separating force is the partition coefficient. So, of course, we are going to have two different type of, let us say, solvents, which are going to have different partition coefficients, and on basis of the partition coefficients, the dissolved sample is going to separate on the basis of partition coefficient. So in this type, the packing consists of a theoretically inert support material which is coated with film of the liquid stationary. Packing consists of theoretically inert support material coated with film of the liquid stationary phase, and this stationary phase is actually inert, and the stationary phase which is adsorbed or which is coated on the film, that liquid stationary phase is actually behaving like a stationary phase. And the division into adsorption and partition is only of theoretical significance, as in partition chromatography. The adsorption effects of the support can be felt. Now, how do we select the solid support? The solid support should be such that it adsorbs and retains the molecular, the mobile stationary phase, and exposes as large surface as possible to the mobile phase. It should be mechanically stable, it should be easy to pack, and it should also not retard the solvent flow. Now, the examples of solid support are silica gel, diatomaceous earth like Kieselguhr or Sellites, etc., and also cellulose that can be used as the solid support. Now, how do we select the mobile phase? The mobile phase is the one that is going to bring about the actual separation of the particles. So the liquid, stationary and mobile phase should have a considerable difference between their solvent strength parameters. They should have different polarities also, and the sequence that you have is differing on the scale of polarity is pure water to methanol to ethanol to propanol, then acetone, then ethyl acetate, ether, chloroform, dichloromethane, benzene, toluene, carbon tetrachloride, cyclohexane, hexane, and finally pentane. So this is the difference between their solvent parameters and strength parameters, of course, on the basis of polarity also. So if the stationary phase is water, then pentane would be the eluatant of choice. So this is how we select the mobile phase, and the mobile phase is actually saturated with the stationary phase to overcome stripping, that is washing of the stationary phase from the column by the mobile phase. So mobile phase is usually saturated with the stationary phase. Now the next type of chromatography that we have, which is again a type of column chromatography, is the gel permeation chromatography, or the GPC. And this method is further named in so many other names are given to this gel permeation chromatography. This type is also known as size exclusion chromatography, or the SEC. This is also called as molecular exclusion chromatography, or the MEC, molecular sieve chromatography, or MSC, gel filtration chromatography, or the GFC, or even gel chromatography. And as told previously, that the driving force or the separating force here is going to be the size of the individual particles which are going to cross through the gel that is going to be used here. Okay, so the stationary phase that we have in this case is a porous polymeric matrix which is formed by the spongy particles with pores that are completely filled with the liquid mobile phase or the gel. And the gel polymer consists of open three-dimensional networks formed by cross-linking of long polymeric chains. The pore size varies with the degree of cross-linking, and the diameter of pores is critical, as separation is based on that molecules above certain size are totally excluded from the pores because they cannot enter the gel. The interior of the pores is reached partially or wholly by smaller molecules. So here we can see that when the sample crosses, the large particles are easily able to cross, whereas the smaller particles are withheld by the pores in the gel. And here the separation is being carried out because of the pore size, and because of this pore size, this method is also termed as molecular exclusion or the molecular sieve chromatography. Here the pores in the gel behave like sieves, and as a result the separation takes place. Now the next method that we have is affinity chromatography. Now affinity chromatography means that the method, the separation is going to be based on some or the other type of affinity. For example, in this particular case here, we are finding that the inert matrix is embedded with a specific antigen, and when a sample passes through this bed of matrix which is containing a specific antigen, then only a specific antibody is able to adhere to this antigen, and result we are easily able to bring about the separation of specific antigen which is required for the antibodies, and whereas all the other molecules and macromolecules will go away, and they are going to be separated from this column very easily. So this is the basis of affinity chromatography. The mobile phase is a liquid as well as or it can also be a dilute alcohol, and the separation mechanism is based on differences between the solutes and molecular weights. Molecules will distribute themselves outside and inside the pores according to their size. Larger ones are excluded, medium size enter halfway, and the smallest ones permeate all the way. Now there's another concept, that is the retention volume. This is VO, retention volume of a substance, and it is inversely proportional to the molecular weight of the solute. So VO is inversely proportional to the molecular weight. It is given by VO inverse 1 upon molecular weight. Now applications of gel permeation chromatography to natural products. So we can apply GPC to natural products also. It helps us to determine the molecular weight of peptides and proteins and polysaccharides. It helps in desalting of colloids, that is desalting of albumin prepared with 2% NH4 twice SO4, preparation of matrix of mono and polysaccharides, separation of amino acids from peptides and proteins, separation of proteins of different molecular weights, then separation of mucopolysaccharides and soluble RNA, separation of myoglobin and hemoglobin, separation of alkaloids and purification of enzymes. And so these many are the applications of gel permeation chromatography to natural products. So we are seeing that a large spectrum of samples or substances can be separated using the gel permeation chromatography. Now, another chromatography that is very important and very much applicable to the modern sciences is the ion exchange chromatography. Here again, the name is telling that we are going to do something with either anions or the cations, and the samples are going to be separated on the basis of charge that is held by them. So the principle is that the process by which ions of an electrolyte solution are brought into contact with the ion exchange resin. That means the substance that you want to separate, we have to actually prepare a solution which contains various ions, and these ions are brought in contact with the resin which contains some or the other charge. So that is called as the ion exchange resin. The ion exchange resin is an insoluble polymer consisting of a matrix, that is a lattice or framework, that carries fixed charges which are not exchangeable. But that means that these carrier charged particles are embedded on the matrix, and therefore they are not exchangeable. And the mobile or active ions or counter ions which are loosely attached to the matrix. So in water, the counter ions move more or less freely in the framework and can be replaced by the ions of same sign present on the surrounding solution. So what happens is that the matrix of a cation exchanger is considered as a crystalline non-ionized polyanion, and the matrix of an anion exchanger as a non-ionized polycation. And as a result of this movement, the molecules are, these molecules get exchanged with help of the ion exchange chromatography. So there are two types of exchanges. The first one is cation exchanger, and the second one is the anion exchangers. The cation exchangers, here active ions are cations. The polar groups attached to the matrix are acidic. That is either sulfuric acid or carboxylic acid or phenols. And a cation exchanger is the free carboxylic acid form. So here we can see, this is depicted here in the framework. The framework is embedded with the acidic cation exchanger in the carboxylic form. Here we are seeing. So it is depicted by the formula XCOOH plus. Here X is the framework or the matrix. COO is the fixed ion charge which is anionic and is non-exchangeable. And H plus is the counter ion cation, and this is exchangeable. So what happens is that when they are usually but not always supplied with sodium form, that is XCOONA. Here now see, this is very interesting that we have to note that when these matrix undergo exchange in the solution which is containing various ions, then exchange of these ions takes place, and as a result separation takes place. Similarly, we have anion exchangers. Here the active ions or counter ions are anions, and the polar groups attached to the matrix are tertiary or quaternary ammonium groups which are basic in nature. And the anion exchanger in the quaternary, the anion exchanger is form of a quaternary ammonium form, depicted here as XNR3 plus OH minus. Here again the X is framework or the matrix, NR3 plus is the fixed charge cationic which is non-exchangeable. Similarly, OH minus is the counter anion which is exchangeable in the nature. So they are supplied as chlorides rather than hydroxide, as the chloride ion form is more stable and represented as X dot NR3 plus Cl minus. And the exchange that takes place is given in this formula. So how the regeneration of resin, because once the separation has taken place, then of course the resin will contain the exchange ion, and the normal ion that is present is removed. So ion exchange process is the regeneration of resin is required, and ion exchange process is generally reversible, which is given by this following formula. Here this is how we replace the embedded particle and we remove it from the matrix. So the type of exchanges that we have are ion exchangers, which are either cationic or anionic exchangers, or either organic or inorganic nature. The inorganic ion exchangers includes common clays, soils, minerals, example zeolites, which are used for softening of water. The disadvantage is that they have the very low ion exchange capacity. Then the advantages with an inorganic ion exchanger is that it has got great resistance to high temperatures, and it has got high volume capacity and got great selectivity towards simple inorganic ions. Now the organic exchangers includes natural or synthetic exchangers. The preparation of organic synthetic ion exchangers will include polykondensation of phenols or sulfur and carboxylic derivatives with formaldehyde, which will give you a cationic exchanger, and polykondensation of aromatic amines with formaldehyde will give you an anionic exchanger. These techniques yields products which are linear in structure and relatively soluble in water, and which are now replaced by resin materials based on styrene, divinyl benzene copolymers, and polyacrylates. Now the applications of ion exchange chromatography are also vivid. The first and most common example is the RO machine that we are having in our homes. It is also containing an ion exchange column where water softening takes place. So this helps us by removal of calcium and magnesium and other multivalent ions causing hardness of water by filtration through a layer of strong cation resin. It also helps in water demineralization by removal of cations and anions that are dissolved in water, usually carried by two-step technique in which two columns of strongly acid cation exchange in hydrogen H plus form and strongly basic anion exchange in form of OH minus forms are used in sequence. And as a result, the cations and anions that are dissolved in the water, they are easily removed. The other application is neutralization. Cationic exchanges in H plus can be used to neutralize alkali hydroxide and anionic exchanger in hydroxyl form to neutralize the acidity. Separation of electrolytes from non-electrolytes is also one of the application in ion exchange. Similarly, separation of carbohydrates and their derivatives is important. For example, uronic acids are separated on with help of an anion exchanger. Similarly, sugars are converted into ionized form by using borate and separated on strong anion exchangers. Similarly, hexosamines separated on strong cationic exchangers. So this is all about the application of ion exchangers that we have studied, and this forms the basis of partition chromatography, which is based on the basis of ion exchange principle and also termed as the ion exchange chromatography. So I thank you all once again for joining me. I'm Dr. Suppan Singh, Associate Professor at SITS Pharmacy of the SAGE Group, and this is where we complete today's topic. In my next topic, we are going to talk about high performance liquid chromatography, and also we'll be discussing some advances in HPTLC as well. So thank you very much for joining me. Have a nice day.